Hi guys! Welcome back to Explain the Tea Podcast. This is Kiki
and Haylin.
And this is episode
16.
Period. Hi bestie! Welcome back to our podcast. How are you feeling today?
I'm coming back to life. I had COVID.
I know.
I was on my deathbed, but happy Pride Month, everyone!
Happy Pride! How do you feel about June and it being Pride Month?
Well, it's a little bit different in Hawaii. We celebrate Pride in October. I actually don't know why.
I don't know why. I kind of heard some tea, but maybe we shouldn't share about that.
I think it's coming out day. I think in October, I think the parade.
The parade.
The parade is in October, probably because it's like so hot in June. I don't know.
No, I heard that initially it was in June, like very early on, and then something happened that a group of people also wanted to do an event and it conflicted. So they were like, okay, well, we're going to do it in October, but I don't know.
Anyway, in Hawaii, we celebrate it twice, which is cool.
Period.
Officially in October, but Spill the Tea Cafe, we get to celebrate it every day and twice in June and October.
I know, we're so excited. Actually, in case you guys missed our episode earlier, a couple episodes ago, 12.5, go look it if you haven't seen it.
Bonus episode, go ahead and check it out.
Yeah, we're just 10 days away from our Youth Pride Fest. Are you so excited? Oh,
yes,
I can't wait. Honestly, I always say that our birthday bash is my favorite event of the year, but it does have to be our Youth Pride Fest, which in case you didn't know, Spill the Tea Cafe actually hosts Hawaii's only Youth Pride Fest. But enough of that, just go back to episode 12.5, which is our bonus episode, to learn more about it. Should we talk about how to be an ally?
Yes, I think this is extremely important, especially for people who are not of the community, because allyship is really a verb. It's an action word. And we don't want to fall into the habit or the pattern of only being an ally during Pride Month.
Yes.
Or profiting off of Pride, like making everything rainbow. I mean, it's not a bad thing, but you really want to look at your intentions. You really want to look at, are we causing any harm to the community?
What exactly does it mean to be an ally?
I think, number one, being able to decide that you are here to actually protect a marginalized community, that, there's not like a right or wrong way to be an ally, but I do think that the intentions have to be pure.
Mm-hmm.
How do you describe your allyship?
Honestly, the way I see being an ally is kind of, and I know I've said this many times in the past before, it's like you're like that shield that stands in front of the entire LGBTQIA, that stands up and speaks up, regardless of the fear, regardless of what people are going to think about you standing up for the LGBTQIA community, regardless of the famous cancel culture. For me, being an ally means that just speaking up and advocating and defending those marginalized folks.
I was really touched by Maddie from H3RC, and when she was talking on the Trans Day of Visibility, she said, hey, everybody in Hawaii, we expect you guys who are cisgendered and the majority of the island, when you say you're an ally, you need to be the shield. And that really touched me and it really resonated with me because it's true, especially for our youth.
What do you think about the cancel culture and the whole LGBTQIA and allyship, all that together?
Well, I think that there are more people who actually support in anecdotally, but also in people's hearts. I do feel like people want to be allies, but sometimes they are held back by fear. And sometimes fear of the cancel culture or fear of making mistakes, fear of misgendering people, which I still do, fear of not having enough information or, fear of offending someone. And so what they do is stay silent, and inadvertently that actually continues the silence, the repression, and the oppression of LGBTQI+ people.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like sometimes, and I've had this, I remember, shout out to my friend Jan if you're watching this, but I remember growing up, I had this friend of mine He was actually the very first individual in my school that I personally knew that had the courage to come out. I think we were like maybe 7th grade. And a lot of people, decided out of fear to not advocate for him. And they were like, oh my God, if I defend him or if I stand by him, I'm going to get canceled by my other friends,
Oh, like that. I
Yeah. But, growing up, I feel like everyone did the work they had to do and they grew, and now they support him. But yeah, I feel like that cancel culture, that whole thing is definitely a barrier from those people that do want to speak up and that do want to advocate for them, but are scared of like, oh, what if I'm going to get rejected? But what they don't realize is that that's really a small fraction of what these people are really going through.
Right. And I do think that the younger generation is more accepting, maybe because they see it more, maybe because they're exposed to it more, right? But this has been around since the beginning of time in every culture, and we want to recognize that. And we do understand that even in the US, even my mom's generation and older generations above that, it actually was not safe to come out as even being gay. We know that it's still, as the United States of America kind of like move backwards, it's still not safe. But my point is that a lot of the younger generations are not tolerating the discrimination. So they're saying, even if you're going to discriminate me, I'm going to stand here and say, this is who I am. This is who I love. And, I'm going to be my authentic self if I'm going to be in this earth. So, I think back then, a lot of people were in the closet and it was a true safety concern. It still is today. But I think that people are more comfortable. And I think also the work that the community has done have allowed younger people to feel that safety as well. Like there's a lot of work that has been put into trying to promote equality and trying to promote, what am I trying to say?
I don't know, but talking about hard work. But I'm like thinking in my brain as you're speaking, I'm like, yes, like being an ally can be hard. Definitely not harder than being LGBTQIA, but we also need to understand that hard work requires action.
Right, absolutely. And even just saying, oh, I'm an ally, or this is a mistake that sometimes people don't realize it is a mistake, but saying like, oh, I'm an ally. I have a cousin who's non-binary, or I have a best friend who's
I'm like,
gay.
Don't do that. Don't out them. Like, What if they haven't really come out like that?
Mm-hmm. And being an ally is providing that safe space for, whoever that loved one is, and not outing them because it's their story to tell. And it's really unfortunate that they really have to come out like time and time and time again. But it really is their own story to tell, and it really is based on their timeline. So when you talked about your best friend, I also had friends who are gay, but they were not willing to come out. And even though I may have felt like, oh, I support you, I want you to come out, that was not what they needed from me, and they were not trying to come out to anyone, whether it was religion or, and that's a big one that I wanted to talk about, because being disowned by your church and your community and your family, you don't want to out people, especially in the I guess, Christian church. I love now, Billy, shout out Billy again.
Shout out Billy, OG coach.
Yes, and also Reverend Jason.
Yes.
Being able to break
Vance.
Yes, Vance too. Just breaking that binary thinking of you have to be Christian, and so you have to love the sinner and hate the sin. Can you tell the audience why that's so offensive, that saying?
Honestly, again, if I feel like my God is a God of love, and he's not going to be here with a checklist oh, Kiki loved Haylin and she has to go to hell. That's not the God that I know. And I think that we have this misconception of, that God is going to, how would you put it?
Make us burn in hell?
Yes. And, something talking about that, I have heard from other church community members, they're like, oh yeah, I would love to support you, but I'm going to burn in hell. That's
sad.
Christianity or religion should not be feeding you that kind of fear into your soul and heart. And if you want to be an ally, again, it's hard, but it's very rewarding.
Yeah, I think. What was I
and
trying
please
to say?
Don't be like this big corporations. We don't promote alcohol, but shout out Budweiser. You guys love to stay very silent all year long, but then it's June and you guys are like super prideful and like, oh my God, we love LGBTQIA people, but for the rest of the year, you guys are freaking silent. Come on, like don't be like those big corporates or corporations that just choose to make a profit during this time. Like these folks need more than this. Does that make sense?
Like you want them to provide the resources, you want them to have representation on their boards or in their leadership. Like actually be about it if you're gonna be about it. Oh, I remembered, see my ADHD, I love it. But what I was saying about we love the sinner, not the sin, that is so contradictory because every one of us sins, right? And so why do you get to choose which sin is, I guess, better than others? Like, why do you get to put a moral judgment on your sin versus someone else's sin? And, the Bible really doesn't talk about like gay marriage or doesn't talk about, abortions, like all these things that our country is fighting about right now. But what they do talk about is like the kindness and the forgiveness and the, unity. And that is what's really promoted. And I think that's when I was shouting out Reverend Jason Vance, Billy, that they combine and they say like, we are open to all religions. We are open to all spirituality. Like, even Buddhism doesn't exclude Jesus or doesn't exclude Christianity. And so, it's still so heartbreaking because today in 2024, I have many, many friends, family, companies, businesses, churches who really, can I say hate? They really hate Spill the Tea Cafe.
We're not going to say hate. We're just going to say they absolutely strongly dislike Spill the Tea Cafe.
Right.
I mean, we've mentioned it before. That one school that didn't want one of our therapists to work at Spill the Tea. It was like you either choose our work or you quit for Spill the Tea and then you get hired by us, or you stay at Spill the Tea, but then we can't offer you a full-time position.
Right. Or other churches saying like, we are not going to support your business. I respect their own, I guess, opinion about things. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion. I think that a lot of times it comes from their own programming growing up. Sometimes they just don't have the exposure or they just continue that ignorance. A lot of times it's fear of like you said, like burning in hell, but also fear of their own homosexuality, or I guess there's so many people who are in the closet still who are Christians. And it's so sad for me to see that and witness that because I know how much they're suffering. And I just wish that people could expand their mindset and be a little bit more flexible in their thinking, because we are living in a different world today and we have so much technology and we have advancements with like medicine and all those things. So can we also evolve in that way?
I feel like even though it's 2024, it's like here in this country, it's like we're still living in the 30s, like 1930s. Like, come on, like level up, evolve.
Yeah.
Can we also talk about the platinum rule?
Yes, I love the platinum rule. So everyone knows the golden rule, which is treat others like how you want to be treated, right?
Mm-hmm.
But a better rule is the platinum rule, which is treat others how they want to be treated.
And what does that look like?
So it's in our evolution, right? It's not only about treating others how I want to be treated, because I have different beliefs, values. I have, I'm a different person. And so why should I treat other people like me, like how I want to be treated? It's kind of similar to like love languages. So I'm not going to always try my best to love my husband in the way I want to be loved, because maybe he doesn't want to be loved that way. In fact, he doesn't, because my love language is more so like acts of service or gifts.
She loves her pink gifts.
And then his is like words of affirmation. Like for me, I'm like, I don't even want like words of affirmation. Like, so why are we going to love others the way that we want to be loved? Does that make sense?
Yes. And I love that because I feel like we're often being told like, oh, treat others the way you want to be treated, but like that's not always the case.
Right. So how do we find out though how people want to be treated? If we don't know, should we make assumptions? Should we?
No, never make assumptions. Ask. Always ask. And it's okay to make mistakes. For example, you know, I'm an ally and I've been an ally for, I would say I have not always been an ally. I was very ignorant back then.
That's so surprising. Mm-hmm. Since when?
Well, it's because my parents, I love you guys, and my family, I love you guys. But just like you, I also grew up in a very like Christian household.
Yeah.
Or not Christian, Catholic. And I was kind of brainwashed, you know what I mean, on how bad it is and like, oh, like LGBTQIA people, like they're just doing it wrong, like that's not okay. Like it was very like black and white until, shout out my uncle, I learned about what he was going through at a very early, you know, young age. And I was like, oh shit, maybe I need to expand the way I'm thinking and maybe I really need to educate myself. And then my friend came out when I was in 7th grade. And then I realized like, oh, okay, maybe like I need to start shifting and understanding that this is just as normal as me loving my boyfriend deeply. And I need to also understand that how would I feel if I was the one like constantly getting rejected by my friends or constantly being, you know, like marginalized, you know?
Yeah.
And all that to say is that it's definitely been a learning lesson. And, you know, even to this day, sometimes I do get the pronouns mixed up. And I try not to be so hard with myself, like, oh my God, I can't believe I made the mistake. But actually, it means that you are trying, you are learning, and you are creating some type of self-awareness around it. And I really think that that's truly what matters.
Yes, I think when the kids talk to us about it, there is one thing about misgendering. Don't make it about you. I've actually made that mistake many times. You're like, oh my God, I feel so bad, you know. But you really need to move on, right? And not take that like attention, like, because it's someone's identity and it's someone, you know, they understand that, okay, it's just part of you growing to make those mistakes, but don't over exaggerate your mistake.
Yeah.
And don't make yourself the victim, right? Always ask, like, it's important to have people of the community. Like, I love that we have this cafe and all of that, but we've talked about this a lot, that as we grow, the real dream is to have faces of this community, right? Sitting here and being able to advocate and having all these possibility models. And we're going to get there. We are.
We're en route.
Yes. I think it's so important, though, as an ally, that you're really taking action, and especially with youth, if you're a parent or an educator, you know, it's exactly what Kiki said, that it's really love that makes us become an ally, because you weren't an ally until you loved your uncle, like, you know. And let's be real, like, would I be here if my son wasn't part of the community? Like, no, I would not be here. Yeah. So it's, you know, I'm a therapist and I've always like loved, you know, at-risk youth, and a lot of them were LGBT, and I never had anything against it. However, my child being trans, you know, I will say, even within the community, a lot of gay people, lesbians, bisexual people, they also don't feel like trans people should be part of the community. Like, they also are not allies, right?
And that's like my biggest pet peeve.
I'm gonna call this out, even though I'm like cisgendered and straight, because it is an issue. And I think that if you're part of the community, I'm also speaking to you, right? Like, can you also change your mindset? Can you have a little neuroplasticity? Can you be a little bit more flexible and know that 2% of people are trans always, right? I think it's like 10% for LGBT in general, but trans people, so it's a rare occurrence. However, if kids are like persistent and consistent and they're just dying by suicide every day, can we listen to them? We can't do any of this work without listening to the voices who are actually the ones with this lived experience. So I do want to call out our allies within the LGBT community as well. What do you think of that?
I agree. And, you know, always acknowledge and apologize for the mistakes, because they can always happen. But it becomes an issue when you continuously, when you continuously, you know, when you continue to make
Misgender
the
people?
same mistake,
Oh, okay.
you know,
Yeah.
even when it has been very clear to you that like, hey, that's not my pronoun, that's not my name. And I think that a great tip is that, you know, if Haylin comes to me and tells me like, hey, this is my name and these are my pronouns, like maybe change their name on your phone and, you know, like maybe put their pronouns on the contact right next to their name. That way, when you are having those like interactions, those phone calls, those text messages, something in your brain triggers you to know that something has changed with this person. And maybe that'll be just a friendly reminder, you know?
Right. And just allow people to be the experts of their own lives. Allow people to do what they need to do to be happy. And also like do what you need to do to be happy. But there's no reason to be like, I don't know why all these kids are trans now. I don't know why, you know, it's like we are in this work every day. And I'm telling you, these kids don't want to be trans. And it's such a hard road for them until they can fully accept themselves. And then once that happens, they're so unstoppable. And I love it. And I've seen so many kids like that. It just gives me joy. And it also has inspired me in a way. Again, it's not about me, but to be more authentic. Like in general, it's very hard to be authentic because society doesn't allow us to really be multidimensional, right? Like even me being a therapist, you know how much backlash we get for being a little innovative or serving boba at our clinic? You know, let's allow people to do what they need to do to be happy, and let's listen to the voices within the community and let that guide our interventions, let that guide our services, let that guide our community, instead of just saying like, well, I don't know, this old white guy from the 1900s said this, and this is why we're going to follow this psychological modality.
Evolve. And, you know, as an ally, it is okay to ask questions, you know, ask questions, and of course, do not push back, and do not ask condescending questions just because you're curious, you know. And when you are asking about their experiences, make sure that you're actively listening and thanking them for sharing, you know, because I know we said this a couple episodes back, but it is a privilege. It is a privilege to truly know what that person is going through. And if they choose to share that with you, it's because not only they feel safe with you, but they want to educate you so that you don't continue making these mistakes with other LGBTQIA folks.
Yes. And if you want to learn more about the trans experience or, you know, the, I guess, gay experience, you can educate yourself as well, right? I'm not saying that everyone has the same experience, but people do get tired of having to explain all the definitions. And, you know, the kids are like, can we just not talk about this? You know, sometimes they get tired of it. And so if you love the person, I would say, let them be on their journey and just be there for them. Send them a text message, take them out. You know, if you're a supportive adult, as a reminder, it takes only one supportive adult to decrease the suicide risk by 40% in this community. So, you know, say, hey, like, let's go get a bite. You know, hey, how are you doing? These little things can really be life-saving.
Yes. And I would say when you are talking to another like LGBTQIA folk and you're asking questions, I would think about these three things. Is it going to uplift? Is it loving? And is it helpful?
Yes.
Right?
Yes. I think those things are so important when you're talking to a member of this community, because a lot of times there's so many microaggressions that are happening that we don't mean to. We don't, again, right? And we're so afraid of getting it wrong. But when you have all that anxiety around it, you're actually making them feel like an outcast, like something's wrong with them. And so be very self-aware about how you approach this. I also think that as an adult or as an educator, you know, step up, speak out on their behalf. If you see them getting bullied, nip that in the bud, you know, stop it right away, even though you might be judged for it. You know exactly who you are as an ally, know exactly what you're willing to lose. Shout out to Rebecca. She's the one who's taught me this. But for me, you know, I might be willing, because I'm a therapist and because I have a child in this community, I might be willing to lose a lot more, and that's okay. Like, there's not a right or wrong way to be an ally, right? Like, some people will be protesting and they're willing to get arrested. Like, I actually can't get arrested, you know. So,
but I will get arrested for us,
right? And so just know who you are as a person. Know what you're willing to lose. And for me, I'll say it now, but my love for my children, which I think is any mother, if they're really honest with themselves, would not allow me to go to a heaven where my child is not there. And so I am willing, you know, if there's someone else's heaven where my kid is not there, then I'll be in hell together with my child, you know?
We'll be roasting marshmallows, talking story.
And I just want people to expand their thinking a little bit, right? It's not about like burning in hell. It's really not. You know, can we live for today? Can we love these kids? Can we make sure that they live to see past 18? Because right now, that's not happening, especially in Hawaii.
Wow, that was deep. I'm like getting goosebumps.
Well, 50% of trans youth attempted suicide in the past year. We also know that SAMHSA reported that in 2019, suicide is the #1 leading cause of death for Native Hawaiians and other Pacific Islanders and other marginalized youth, like the LGBT community, ages 15 to 24.
And 60% of our LGBTQIA youth that were trying to get mental health services in our state here in Hawaii were actually not able to get in, which is something that we're trying to fight right now. That's why we have so many therapists, and you're able to get in like within days of your first intake call. So
look at you.
Period.
All your stats. And that's another reason that we launched HTTC, Hawaii Therapist Training Center, to increase the amount of therapists we have available for our kiddos. So thank you guys so much for helping us on our journey. We really are on a road to $1 million. I know it's $1 million to get this operation.
Oh my gosh, we got like 8 more months.
Yes, and more importantly, we want to change 1 million hearts, right? So if you're a Christian and you heard this and this impacted you, can you donate $1? Because if you can show that all these people who are changing their minds and changing their hearts donate $1 as a way to say, hey, I'm thinking about this differently, then that's even more valuable than the $1 million.
And shout out to First Unitarian Church here in Honolulu.
Oh my
they
gosh,
donate
I
a
love them.
plate in June every single year. We're so grateful for you guys.
Also Crossroads.
Yes.
Church of the Crossroads. They are an inclusive church. We love them as well. What else? What other churches? The Buddhist church. Hello.
Yeah, shout out Jen Matsuoka if you're watching this. But if you are one of our listeners or you're a parent that would love to learn more about the work that we're doing or would like to be connected with one of our therapists or teen mentors at Spill the Tea Cafe, you're more than welcome to reach us at info@spilltheteacafe.org, or you can go to our website, spilltheteacafe.org.
We'll see all of you at the Youth Pride Fest, June 30th. 3 to 7 p.m.
10 more days
at Mark's Garage, and we will be having a beautiful art gala and exhibit.
Be there or be square. Don't go there to protest, though.
We're probably gonna have protesters again.
I'll fight them. Ciao. Good job.